Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. I'm hanging out on the PTR as my Warlock Volpera, and this man keeps spamming emotes. I'm gonna leave him. So originally I wanted to log on to check out PTR to see if Volpera racials have been fixed, if they work properly. This is a 120 enemy dummy, and if I use my Volpera racial, it still hits for nothing. So Volpera is still not finished, even though I feel like the Death Knights are, coming together maybe in the next week or two. Hopefully, the shorter time the better. But I want to take a look at some of the new weapons that were added in the brand new raid. Now, Blizzard wants to work with the new system of corruption. Instead of getting pieces of gear to Titanforge, like I have these gloves from a Mythic 9 that Titanforge to 450 with a socket, which is a huge piece of gear, all on its own from a 9. I got lucky and I literally got one of the best pieces of gear, and this one has critical strike. So this would be insane if I was an Affliction Warlock main. Now, gear and item levels should matter again. So if somebody gets a really good piece of gear, like a 445, they should get it from some difficult content. I think some of the more difficult content should be higher item level or higher level keys, but also mythic raids. Mythic raids is where the hardest of the hardest content comes out, and I, like many others, is perfectly okay with having those pieces of content have the best gear in the game. So Titanforging being taken out, and hopefully it stays out, but the next expansion of Shadowlands is going to be an interesting sell for patch 8.3. Corruption gear is going to be replacing it, and we got more corruption weapons. Now, I don't know if weapons can actually get corrupted, but in Azeroth Waking City, you get corrupted gear. And that's what I want to take a look at. There's so many different corruptions. Corruptions will add a negative to you, so you'll start seeing debuffs on your character, like you'll have tentacles that will grip you and slow you whenever you use abilities sometimes. Or you'll create a zone, and if you don't step out of that zone, you'll take shadow damage. Then you'll have even more corruption where a little spawn of N'Zoth will chase after you. It gets faster the more corruption you have. And finally, you have the biggest corruption debuff that you never want to get, where you simply take more damage and take less healing. So corruption is going to be a system you'll be able to manage in 8.3. These weapons have corruption on them, but they also have an interesting effect, and some of these effects are straight up busted. So I'm going to set them all to Mythic to see just how good these pieces of gear are. And hopefully they do have all this gear on every single level, right? I hope so. I don't have any class selected, so we should be able to look at all of them. First one is going to be Zig Vra, and that's a agility staff. So Brewmaster or Survival Hunter or Feral, this would be amazing. Your auto attacks bite into your target's soul, dealing 2% of your health in damage and healing you for that amount. Obviously, Brewmaster weapon, but imagine Survival Hunter or a Feral. Every time you auto attack an enemy, 2% of your health goes as damage, and you heal for 2% of your health every auto attack. If you have a class that's two-handed that uses agility that has fast auto attack, so like a Survival Hunter where your pet can bite multiple enemies and put a bleed, you can actually increase just how often this weapon procs. You also got another one here, Devastation's Hour, a two-hand strength sword. Your attacks have a chance to trigger a beam of Twilight Devastation, dealing damage equal to 5% of your health to all damage in front of you. So this could be amazing for a Blood Death Knight for a little bit of AoE in Mythic Plus dungeons, but also this would be amazing for a Fury Warrior with 2 of these swords. Has insane amount of stamina, and 5% of your health for a Fury Warrior with 2 of these, with all that stam, becomes even more valuable a weapon. This could also be amazing for Death Knight as well as Arms Warrior. Either way, still a really powerful weapon. Some of these are new. I believe this one is a new one, and some of them have been in for a while. Like this polearm is new. Quarth Lyeth? I don't know how to say that name, but Quar is a agility polearm. So obviously Feral and Brewmaster as well as Survival Hunter. Your damage abilities build Echoing Void. Each time it builds, Echoing Void has a chance to collapse. Deal 1% of your health as shadow damage to all enemies every 1 second until no stacks remain. So this seems like an AoE ability. I can't tell. I feel like this would be better in keys. And still, this would be, again, insane for a tank. I like how they're playing with a health percentage damage. I wonder if all of them are like that. You also got Skjul Vaz. Again, all these names are going to be funky. But you got a Strength Axe, Two-Hander, Haste Mastery, gain Obsidian Skin, increasing your armor by 5%. Every 100,000 of your max health lost, explode with Obsidian Destruction, dealing shadow damage equal to 1,000% of your armor to all enemies within 20 yards. I could obviously see this to be an increasingly powerful weapon for PvP. Imagine using this in duels. You gain 5% armor. And for 100% of max health loss, so the lower health you get, the more damage you do based on the armor that you have. If you could wear a DPS with maybe some armor trinkets on top of it, or maybe like you're able to swap to a shield whenever this weapon procs, I'm pretty sure the effect goes away, but imagine if you had that kind of a combo. Obviously, this is going to be insanely good for Blood Death Knights, and I think this will be the better Blood Death Knight weapon. But even for DPS, it's I feel like it's not as good as which one was it? The two-hander, Devastation's Hour. But it still could potentially be good. I mean, I wish I could test this. I wish Blizzard added a vendor where we could just test every one of these weapons, but it seems really strong. They also have a sword here. This is a strength sword, and then they eventually added an agility sword and even a dagger. So Outlaw rogues and Assassination rogues will be able to get these. Paralos, Empire's Dream. Your damage abilities build stacks of Searing Flames. When you reach 30 stacks, exhale the Searing Breath, dealing damage equal to 5% of your health to all targets in front of you. Again, percentage damage could be good for a tank, but also could be good for someone like a Frost Death Knight, since they also have a lot of health. Markowa the Mind Piercer. Your mind's true potential is unlocked, causing your spells to grant flashes of insight, gain between 1 to 8% intellect at all times. This is passive, just at all times you gain intellect. This could be good for a healer, but also this could be good for a caster. So anybody that uses axes as intellect, so shamans, I could see those. Do other casters use axes as, so mages wouldn't be able to use these as far as I believe. Neither priests. So this is really just for shamans at that point. So some weapons are going to be specific. The dagger. I always wanted to see this one. Your attacks have a chance to spawn a tentacle, which mind flays your target for shadow damage every second for 100 seconds. This reminds me of a weapon from Cataclysm. If I can find it right now, it's going to be one of the last, and actually the last raid for Dragon Soul. Madness of Deathwing. There it is. Gerthalak, Voice of the Deep. Your melee attacks have a chance to summon the old god tentacle of the old ones to fight by your side, so it will do exactly the same thing. So that's hilarious. So that's going to be really strong for any rogues. And if you have two, since you have two weapons in each hand, double of these daggers would be quite huge. This would be insane for PvP. Extra shadow damage. You also get a intellect sword, so classes that use intellect swords will be able to use this. Your spells and abilities have a chance to strike an nearby enemy with infinite star, dealing arcane damage, they'll adjust the numbers later, and increase their damage taken from your infinite stars by 25%, stacking up to 10 times. This is quite good. This is quite insane. And if it procs a lot, it could be really good for AoE, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be used for a couple enemies at a time. And then we got ourselves Unguent Caress, agility fist weapon for monks as well as rogues. Your attacks have a chance to lash your target with a living tentacle, dealing shadow damage and snaring them by 30% for 6 seconds. That's quite good. Overall, just a little bit extra damage on top of everything you do. Vor's Yakal, I guess? Gain Void Ritual, giving your spells and abilities a chance to increase all secondary stats by 10 every second for 20 seconds. This chance is increased if at least 2 nearby enemies also have Void Ritual. So the more allies in your raid have this. So the idea is you should have at least 2 or 3 of these weapons in your raid in order to get the most amount of chances for it to proc. So most healer classes and some DPS classes will have this as a weapon choice. Ice Stalk of Il'gynoth. Your spells and abilities have a chance to show you ineffable truth, increasing the rate of cooldown recovery by 20% for 12 seconds. That is quite strong. So any class with a wand, priest, mages, as well as warlocks will be able to use this to basically get the cooldowns back faster. If we did not think the fire mages were super strong prior, then I don't really know. That seems insane. We also got Whispering Eldritch Bow. Your auto shots reduce remaining cooldown of a random hunter ability by 1.1 second. So that's quite random, actually. All these so far have been some sort of a damage buff, except for the wand. This is the first time we actually had something that affects your class, and this is the second weapon. Eldritch Bow. So this could reduce the cooldown of ability like Kill Command or Barb Shot, but it also could give you a turtle back or disengage. This could be quite good, honestly, for Marksman Hunter. Let's say you get in a bunch of disengages back to back, all of a sudden you're mobile. This, in a sense, also keeps you on your toes. It's only 1 second comeback for your abilities, but you're in Bloodlust to use every ability and get them back so much faster. This is quite good. Is haste going to be a better stat for hunters by any chance, with this weapon being a thing? I do wonder if you just stack a bunch of haste to get a lot of auto attacks. And that is going to be all the weapons we have so far, but it seems that Blizzard have added one corruption weapon for each one of these. So in a sense, this is going to be almost like a mandatory weapon for you to get, but a very powerful weapon. I'm kind of glad that they are doing this through corruption. So most people, if they're not even going to use corruption gear, at least everybody in the raid is going to have a corruption weapon. Certain corruption gear is going to be maybe mandatory for some raids in order to do more damage, but managing corruption, knowing that you have a piece of gear that's corrupted, a piece of weapon that affects your gameplay, does allow you to kind of sideline some of the other corrupted pieces of gear on you. And as you unlock more corruptions, the weapon will be the core of what you'll be running, but then the gear will be secondary. So maybe this is how Blizzard is trying to offset some of the other pieces of loot. For example, you could be, let's say, I don't know, let's say you are let's go rogue. You have 2 daggers that are both corrupted, and that amounts to 50 corruption already. That means you have quite a bunch of debuffs on you to begin with. So that's going to be a little bit rough for you to deal with all the negative debuffs to begin with. So if you are also stacking on top of that gear that gives you crit damage increases, maybe that's how Blizzard wants to justify some of the gear changes that you'll be getting for your weapons and armor and managing corruption. Because yes, you can do more damage, but you're just going to start getting one-shot by all these different debuffs that come out. You're going to just be getting zoned out. Like every time you get a good proc and you get some good damage, you'll be putting down a shadow zone that you need to run out of instantly. So maybe this is why Blizzard decided to add all these weapons. These seem like very powerful, and they seem really busted if it can be used for PvP. Like the dagger for rogues, I could definitely see used for PvP. This seems really strong even if you have it proc constantly. Also, could it proc from your bleeds? That's another good question. But I want to take a look at these weapons because they seem really powerful to begin with. And maybe this will be something that everybody is going to want to gun for at the beginning. These weapons are a normal version, but then you also have the mythic version. I do want to see if the daggers do more damage. Yes, they do. So the better the dagger, better the piece of gear, the more the corruption. So it seems that no matter what you do, in PvP, you guys might not be excited if you're someone who feels like you don't want to have to PvP or PvE, do raids and dungeons to do player versus player content. You guys might have to jump onto these weapons. So at least do your normal raids to get the base version of these weapons just for the sake of the effect. And these are 445, so at the very beginning of the expansion or patch release, you'll want to go and get on these weapons as soon as possible. You get your swords for Frost Death Knights, literally from the first boss. The two-hander axe and staff for Pharaohs from the second boss. Third boss gives you the bow, so if you're any of those classes that are one-hand strength, like Frost DK, Hunter, if you are a Unholy Death Knight, you have some decent choices to begin with. And then next one is going to be the mace with the random stats of the fourth boss. Fifth boss is Hive Mind for the polearm. So if you're rogue, so far I haven't seen a single rogue weapon that is corrupted. And that's going to be all the way down to Vexione, still no weapon there. Your first agility weapon is going to be on Rodden the Despoiled, so that's going to be quite a while. Then where's the dagger? Dagger goes on Carapace of N'Zoth. Wow, and the intellect weapon is from there as well. So if you are an assassination rogue, you're going to aim for the last few bosses, and that's going to be a little bit, I don't know. Maybe they'll disable these insanity effects in PvP, but I don't think they will. I think they want people to play with it. But what I think the insanity effects are going to do and the corruption effects are going to do is really set yourself up for, I don't know why I just pressed this, for a future expansion. I think Blizzard wants to use the corruption mechanics in the next expansion for Shadowlands, but they're going to change it slightly. It's going to be some sort of a, you get a bonus, but you also maybe get some sort of a curse or some sort of a debuff, and you'll have to play around those debuffs. Kind of like legendaries that have an interesting effect, but you'll have an interesting, powerful effect together with some sort of a negative, and you have to find a way to manage it most likely. So that's what I think they're going to end up doing for patch 8.3. Because it seems like they're doing a lot with this corruption, they're actually building on it more. Because they said the corruption mechanic isn't going to continue into the Shadowlands, there's no reason for them to be putting this much work in order to just abandon it for later. So it makes me excited, and because what could this system be in the future? I'm hoping corruption will be somewhat of a successful system for 8.3. It'll be the worst if we had this patch 8.3. The very last patch of BFA, and people hated the corruption system and the corruption gear and how corruption affects your performance and gameplay. And maybe it'll be just one of the things Blizzard will need to take out eventually, but it would put such a bad taste in people's mouths for the last patch of BFA when you know greatness, the Shadowlands, is going to be coming next. So many people are excited about Shadowlands, so I'm hoping for the best with this corruption. But in this video, I want to showcase you guys some of the weapons. They all look pretty busted, but they all look pretty fun. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know what your thoughts are about corrupted weapons. I think these are going to be a must-have, and since I have a raiding guild, I'm going to be able to use them. I really hope Blizzard adds a vendor with corrupted weapons for us to test right now on the PTR as soon as possible. Maybe with this Tuesday reset, it will be great to go and test out some of these weapons left and right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.